You're welcome back to Sahara TV. We have on the line right now the spokesperson for the Nigerian Army, the acting director of public relations, Colonel Sani Kukasheka Usman. Colonel Usman is going to speak to us about what the army is doing with Boko Haram at the moment and also other issues concerning security and the army itself. You're welcome to Sahara TV, Colonel Usman.
It is my pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir, for making time with us. Recently, I should say, the Nigerian Army announced that it had cleared a vital route of landmines. They mentioned the Goza Yamteke in Borno State, where the Army says it has cleared a route of landmines. What kind of implements does Boko Haram use to fight, and how prepared are you to take them on with these things that they're using?
Well, yes, you are quite right. Thank you very much, Kwesi, for having me on this prestigious television station talking about Sahara TV. As you were saying, actually, the Boko Haram terrorists use variety of implements and weaponry. And I can tell you, despite all that, the Nigerian Army, and indeed the Nigerian military, is well prepared, as you can see by our recorded success to rout out Boko Haram terrorists.
What is the short-term plan, really, for rooting out Boko Haram? I know the army has been, or the military, I should say, has been consistently trying to contain Boko Haram. But with the new administration, what is the short-term plan for dealing with Boko Haram, sir?
Well, if I should tell you plans about, dealing with Boko Haram, it's tantamount at me divulging operational secret. But one thing I can tell you is that there is a renewed resolve, not just necessarily on the part of the Nigerian Army, but also on the part of Nigerian society. Enough is enough that terrorism and insurgency in any shape or form is routed out in the shortest possible time. And if you are quite aware, recently President Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic, President Muhammadu Buhari, has promised that hopefully by the end of this year we should see the end of Boko Haram. Already the Nigerian Army has keyed into this directive, and we are working towards actualization of that mandate. And good thing that the Nigerian society are tired of this collective punishment by this ragtag terrorist group. And in no distant time, definitely we'll make sure that we routed them out from their respective enclaves and camps.
So also, you've been quoted as saying that the military has been using firepower to upset Boko Haram, targets. With over hundreds of captives, we still have girls who have not been accounted for, in the camps of Boko Haram and all of that. With the army bombing Boko Haram, what plans do you have in place to make sure there is minimum to zero casualties, civilian casualties, that is?
Yeah, thank you very much for asking that question. One thing I want you to understand, the Nigerian military is a thorough professional military. Forget about all other stories that you are getting over the place. On no account should we attack any terrorist camp without adequate intelligence, and even if it is the Air Force, there is adequate information before you attack the terrorist camp. And we are quite mindful of the fact that quite a number of people have been abducted over time, not necessarily these Chibok schoolgirls, and they are still with the Boko Haram terrorists. So we respect human rights, talk less of even human lives. So adequate care has been taken to ensure that we avoid collateral damage.
Okay. And also, whilst you're doing this, just recently we read that the army has rescued over 100 captives. In the process of doing this, do you also capture some of the militants? Have you, for instance, got close to the top echelons of Boko Haram?
Yeah, we have done. And even yesterday, we issued a statement in which some of the kingpins or war commanders of the Boko Haram have been captured. And naturally, they have been interrogated. Whatever information we're able to get, we make, depending on what information we're able to get. If it is useful, definitely it will be put into action so that we can be able to, put it in our planning. So we have been arresting some of them.
There are no names, big names that you've made public yet?
Well, Kwesi, I don't even know what you mean by big names. A terrorist is a terrorist regardless of his status or position in the terrorist group. And some of them, they have been making useful statements, and we are acting on it.
Okay, I do understand that point, sir, but the point also is that there are ordinary foot soldiers who go out there and cause terror, and there are also brains behind the terrorist attacks, where if you get one of those people, it would be considered as a major achievement, which is why I was referring to that. But let's move on, sir. Do you have any intelligence that there might be foreigners, like foreign mercenaries, fighting with Boko Haram?
Yes, we have information, and quite a number of them have been arrested. And if you recall, some time back when I was in Maiduguri, some of the people that were released, I think, is it the batch of the 42, about 3 or 4 of them were from 3 different African countries.
African countries, there are no. We've also heard of. We've heard reports of sophisticated, weapon trainers and stuff like that coming from outside of the continent. Can you confirm this?
Well, to the best of my knowledge, I wouldn't say so. And whenever you have conflicts of this nature, there is a lot of propaganda all going on. And I want people to be, cautious of that fact. Whenever somebody is making a statement, it should be substantiated with facts. When you talk about sophisticated weapons, what is the caliber of such sophisticated weapons? That is what I want you to have. A lot of photographs are being bandied online, but basically it is just a Photoshop.
Okay. So, former Chief of Defense Staff, Air Chief Marshal Alex Bade, says there are 5th columnists within the army who are filtering out information to Boko Haram. Can you speak to this?
Well, I am not the former Chief of Defense Staff, and he spoke. I think it is not fair for anybody to be asked that question rather than him.
Okay, I'll take that for an answer. So let's switch gears a little bit. Radio Biafra, we all know the history of Biafra and what it resulted in. Now, there are also calls. People are making outright blatant calls for secession with the same Biafra. Is the military paying any sort of attention at all to these kind of calls?
Well, when you talk about that, you should understand the role of the military. Before you deploy the military, all other aspects of the security forces must have been exhausted. And I'm so sure the National Communication Commission is under the Nigerian Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria. They are onto that, and I think they will solve the problem accordingly.
So then the military is not nervous at all that they should perhaps be on some kind of alert?
Kwesi, I won't say the military is never, but I want you to understand the process involved. It is not always you call in the military simply because there is a security issue. There are other apparatus or security apparatus whose responsibility to deal with particular issues. Presently, the military is equally involved in the fight against terrorism and insurgency, especially in the northeast and other parts of the country. And of course, issue of oil bunkering, kidnapping, and stuff like that. So the issue of Radio Biafra as it is, there are other security agencies that are dealing with the issue.
Okay.
And that is not in any way saying that the military is not concerned about any security issue. But definitely we have capable, institutions, state institutions that will handle it.
Okay. Finally, Colonel, the military has also announced a review of the Courtsmartial of some 600 soldiers, most of whom have been sentenced to death for ranges, a range of offenses, running from cowardice all the way through desertion to supplying information to the enemy. What is this review intended to achieve, and what's it going to do for troop morale?
Yeah, just like the statement categorically stated, we are reviewing some of the recent disciplinary cases. And the reason behind that is simply because we have been receiving a lot of petitions, and there were, court cases here and there. And it is only good. The Nigerian Army, being a thorough professional and listening army, it has to listen to all sides of the story. Yes, I agree, some of them bordered on criminal offenses and stuff like that. But that does not in any way, jeopardizing or condoning acts of indiscipline on the part of any officer or soldier. And I want to assure the people, definitely is just to ensure that justice is served. That's all.
So, if I understand what you're saying, right, the court cases had something to do with it, because we were aware that court cases were brought against the army on behalf of some of the junior soldiers. You are admitting that this actually had to do with the reason why you were reviewing these cases?
I didn't get you.
Some court cases were brought against the army on behalf of some of the condemned soldiers. I want to find out from you, sir, if these court cases actually had a part to play in the decision to review their cases.
Well, when we talk about disciplinary cases, there are a lot of disciplinary cases, involving some officers and soldiers of the Nigerian Army, not necessarily pertaining the fight against Boko Haram terrorists. But that does not at the same time mean that some of them were not part of it, actually. So it is a kind of holistic and comprehensive overlook or review of the various disciplinary cases.
Thank you very much for your time, Colonel S.K. Usman, spokesperson for the Nigerian Army. We really appreciate your time, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kwesi. It's been my pleasure, too.
Colonel Sani Kukasheka Usman, Acting Director of Public Relations, Nigerian Army. Thank you so much for your time, sir. We really appreciate it. SaharaTV, stay tuned. We have more on the show.